Cool. Nice light. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm an artist living and working in London, and I explore the identity, freedom paradox of the modern world. And what I'm really interested in this week is the ability for us to find ways to change our interaction with reality by creating items or relationships to things that change our subjective experience. For instance, if I walk around everywhere with sunglasses on, I'm going to have a darker experience than everyone else. And that's a material change to my life. Or if I just don't wear my glasses, everything's going to be blurry after a few meters. Or if I then wear contact lenses, everything's going to be sharper. And that's just taking one sensory experience and applying a subjective lens materially over the top. But what if every time someone said the word pink, I thought of a Teletubby? What if every time someone offered me a glass of water, I drank it as fast as I could? And what if every time I saw a stop sign, I ran as fast as I could past it? All of these things would have a really objective effect on my reality, but it's because I'm interpreting what is normally a very objective idea. Do you want a glass of water? Yes or no. But I'm going to do something differently with it to change my experience over time. And then with those objective changes, can I then create an identity that has a better experience through this carcass of sentient meat? So I'm now looking at how those things can be changed and where it's beneficial to do so, and see if anyone's done this in the past. Now, the nearest group that I've seen do this, and it's actually throughout history, and I think the majority of the world does it in some way, is with religion and spirituality, which are all subjective takes on what the idea of life is. Where does it originate from? What's the meaning behind it? Why do I wake up in the morning and do the things I do? And that can extend all the way through to the afterlife and the origins of life itself, or it can be with things like crystals, where someone may say, hey, here's this crystal that I found. It's purple agate. And what that means is that I will have luck. And every day I'm going to hold this crystal, I'm going to put it in my pocket, and I'm going to walk around and think, hey, I'm lucky. And the more I believe in that, the more the narrative in my head changes to provide that outlook. So I thought, okay, what if I just skip? And then I think, why don't I test this out? Try it. So look around the room. I want you to spot all the different items and think about them. Now I want you to point to the purple ones. Maybe you got there, maybe you didn't. I have loads around because I'm exploring purple. But now I want you to look around. And I want you to look around for a red item. I think it's easier. So I think when you're training your mind to think a certain way with this subjective change, the purple agate in the pocket, I am lucky, what you're actually doing is saying to brain, this is my focus. Now, you couldn't do it with lots and lots of different items, but if you're really smart about what you're doing or place it in a certain area, then you can create a relationship with reality that's viewed through that. So I started looking at how far could you take this? And I looked at the birth of spirituals. And if you go back 2,000 years, you've got Jesus, and then after that, you've got the Prophet Muhammad. And there are numerous times in history where someone has been born. And here it gets a little bit kooky, and I don't really know if it's true or not. But if you look at this idea of the Messiah figure, what you're finding is that there's normally a impoverished background or the need to become impoverished along the way, but generally impoverished, a set of resources around them, 3 wise men, they're kings, J. Krishna, you've got Annie Besant and C.W. Ledbetter. And the resources around them shape the child to think in a certain way and represent a certain set of values, with this idea that they are going to be iconic in nature. And then if you think about like the most modern examples, not spiritual leaders, but certainly leaders of opinion and what people do, musicians, pop stars, Hollywood actors, they originate at a certain level. They come through a system. There's a set of values that they espouse and work for. And I think the amount of objective changes that you can make in your life that have this subjective feedback loop that are different. You know, I walk into places that I want to. I am always lucky. I'm the most attractive person in the room. People should bow when they see me. Anything. The more you do that, the more the lump of meat carries that energy. And it can almost mean that because you're expecting these reactions to happen, because your objective reality is your subjective reality is so specific, tuned in, and consistent because of how well trained you are to expect it, someone else's reality then changes. And that's where I'm starting to get to this border of what is identity. So for me, identity is how well you can maintain the idea of self in difficult conditions. And those don't necessarily have to be horrible conditions. Difficult can mean extremely intoxicating in terms of good. Difficult might be having £1 million in your pocket. That can change you. Your identity is going to shift. And the pliability of your identity, how elastic you are, is a defining factor of it. Now, that doesn't mean that having a flexible personality or identity is a bad thing. I think everyone to a certain degree can be a social chameleon. But it does mean that you don't know what could happen in certain situations. And that's a choice as well. And that can be fun. But my thoughts this week are really, how do I turn this block of research that's maybe 3 weeks in now into something that's beneficial? So I stole from some people. I think the Greeks have this wonderful balance of really cool, aspirational, well-named Parthenon of gods. And they're all kind of cool. In Western culture anyway. I don't know how that extends outside of here. I think they're cool. And I feel like that broad spectrum allowed them to interpret the idea of God in different ways, view it through different lenses, cut it up. And if I look at the stories, there's often the imbuing of services or value from the gods to either one another or to mankind. You know, Mars fights for you in battle. Hermes delivers your letters because he's really fast. I feel like if you can create an art object that represents that feeling, the feeling that Poseidon is meant to give you, and you can really relate to that over time, what you're able to have is this relationship with the idea of Poseidon, and that can strengthen you. You can go in and you can talk to the painting every day, and it's going to respond. The sub-vocalization in your head is going to take on aspects of that work if you treat it well enough. And it's going to become this powerhouse. It's going to be like a pet, and you're not going to want to let it go. And your kids are going to have a relationship to it. And it's going to be this amazing object that you've invested time in. And it's not going to change. It's not going to die. It's not going to break. And if you don't like it, if you don't know what it's doing to you, you can get rid of it. You have full control. And you're then able to use art as this ability to genuinely see the world differently, to pick an identity that you want. And I thought, this can't be novel. This isn't news, this isn't a new idea. And it's exactly how we interpret music. Like when I go to Spotify or I go to listen to Taylor Swift, I want to feel that energy. I'm putting on Taylor Swift's hat. I want to feel the heartbreak of Dua Lipa because she communicates it so much clearer. And that's in my brain and I experience it. And that helps me flush out whatever I'm feeling. So how does the painting do that? It's a bit more static. It stays the same and it's like one song, one frequency that you can tune into, one reference point in the emotional cloud that is the world. And it may offer you different things at different times, but it is always the same reference point. And you're going to see different things over time if it's a good painting. That's the game, I hope. Maybe I just made it all up. I don't know. So these two behind me are the two that are going to go over first. I don't know how long they're going to take. I've been working on this one now for about 6 weeks. This one's going to be for me. About the same sort of time, maybe 7 weeks, that one. And I'm going to go in first with them. And I don't know if the first ones of these are going to be ready in the next 6 months. But I'm just going to keep working on this idea. And I'm going to have these two streams going forwards, which is one, here's this thing that I'm working on for me, these two, that I'm building this relationship to. Then figure out where this one goes and improve the objects that I'm making, drip them out to my friends that like my projects. And then maybe in a couple of months after people have tested out, just ask them, did it work? How do you feel about the painting? Maybe I'm asking too much of people. It sounds a bit like homework. And I'm sure I'll find that out with these things. But I have one on my wall. And there's a part of me that my heart breaks when I look at it. And I think it's always going to be that way with it. So I know it works to a certain degree. I just don't know if anyone else wants that in their house. The second thing that I was working on in terms of identity is what we hide from ourselves. So I put this installation up on the King's Road yesterday where it asked, what does anger feel like? Because I feel that me as a man, it's not good that I'm angry. That's generally what I'm told. Don't be angry. And I have a pretty good relationship with anger. I go to the gym. I was in the military for a long time. Anger isn't something that scares me. I can turn it on, turn it off. I feel very comfortable with it. But when I watched people yesterday interact with the exhibition, and there were screwdrivers and pens all near them, I watched them overreact. They lost control. They went outside of their comfort zone with anger very quickly. And I think that's what's dangerous. Because the emotions will come. And if you bury them and you hide them from who you think you are, eventually that side of you will manifest. And it might not be in your first few years of life, but at some point you're going to have this emotional break. Something's going to happen. And you're going to go beyond. I think it's not an uncommon thing to document within the arts. The recent Joker film is probably the best example. But I thought that was interesting. One of the funniest things I heard was that someone saw it. There was this little girl stabbing, going hell for leather, stabbing the wall. And this family just looked at her and said, is that something we should be encouraging? And I don't know. I don't know. I was encouraging it. It's a good installation. I liked it. And then the third stream, which is tying it all together. I've been working on this love project now for pretty close to 2 years. First year, I just didn't know what I was doing. Second year, a bit more focused. And I've been interviewing people with their view of love. And when I look at it through the lens of identity, what I realize is that the things that we love become our identity. You can look at it through your lens of your hobbies. Oh, I play football every Saturday. Well, that's your environment for a seventh of your social life. Probably makes up a large group of your friends. You probably watch football outside of that. That can't be your only interaction with it. You definitely have a WhatsApp group. It becomes part of your identity. Why'd you do it? Well, I like it. I enjoy it. Or you can go to the extreme. I'm looking at love as this chemical addiction. I'm hooked on the dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin loading. It balances my brain out. What else looks like that? Drug addiction. And I see that a lot more in London. I see people's relationship to things like cocaine as the norm, which is fascinating. And I'm in a state of my life where that's just not part of my world, but I see people and they live by it. They're addicts. I don't judge that at all, but it does become part of your identity. The way they move, when they go to pick up people in their phone book, their sleeping pattern. Everything becomes defined by it. And I think when I look at love, now I see it a little bit differently. There are different types for sure. There's no doubt about that. There's so many different types of love. But I feel like what you are in love with will affect your identity. And that's the thing that you're giving to the relationship, that space. I will concede ground in these areas for us to both experience connection and love. And this week, I just want to paint some pictures. I want to get my paintbrush out and just attack these things. I've got content going out. I don't care about how many views it gets. I'm charting the journey. And if I figure out what I think I'm going to figure out in the next 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 years, hopefully this video is helpful in piecing together whatever it is that I figured out. And if I don't, I hope the robots like it when they're chewing through YouTube content and the artificial intelligence overlords are nice to me because I gave them some nice content to eat. I hope you have a great day wherever you are. And if you have watched this far, I just want you to know that you're really special. You. And that's going to be really hard for some of you to accept. It's going to be really hard for you to accept. Maybe you think it's stupid, but you're special. And I need you to remember that this world is poorer for you not being you. And that little voice in your head that is telling you that people don't like you or are mean to you, it doesn't exist. That voice is no one. It's in your head. And you need to figure out a way of dealing with it. Just give it a hug. No one said that thing. It's you. And I'm going to say something. I love you. Wherever you're at. Go get a glass of water. Do a press up. Or jump up and down. Life is good. Keep living. It's the best way to enjoy it.